right, guys, welcome to Harry Dating Convos. And today I am joined by Nick Brancato. He is a seasoned personal development coach, relationship strategist, and author of the book, Prioritize Us, Unlocking Lasting Love with One Simple Proven Test. Nick's background is very, very unique. He has a master's degree in education and a past career as a Microsoft system engineer, and he blends data-driven tools with emotional insights to help couples reconnect and thrive. His book introduces the total difference score framework. It's a simple but powerful way for couples to identify their values and stay aligned, even as life pulls them in competing directions. Nick, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. That's an amazing intro.
Well, thank you. Yeah, so I'm very excited to talk about the book today, but I like to start off by asking all of my guests, what was your initial dating life like in the early days, and then what led you to doing the work that you do now?
Wow. In the early days, my dating life was non-existent. I was a late bloomer for sure. So I dated a little bit when I was young, but I really wasn't too adept at the dating world until into my 20s for sure. And
Okay.
I've been in several long-term relationships. I've been with my now wife for 10 years. We've been married for like 3, and things are going really well. I've worked with a lot of couples and a lot of individuals, both for their primary relationships and also with dating. So I've, through my own struggles with meeting women and learning to talk to them and date them and court them, I sort of shared that with some other men who have been having similar struggles.
Okay. What were some of the struggles you had early on in dating? And then how did you transition away from that to where you were able to like meet your wife and actually have a successful relationship?
My earliest struggles with dating were with approaching women, talking to them, approach anxiety. So I struggled with just talking to them comfortably, like without putting on a facade. Once I began sort of getting more comfortable with, it was that I wasn't comfortable with myself. So a lot of my early struggles were me getting comfortable with being authentic with talking to women and with having real connections instead of just surface level things. Like I used to think that you just like talk to a girl and try to get her phone number and then take her on a date and then whatever. And you just repeat this sort of process of like game, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so in the early days, I thought that that's how it kind of went. And so I learned sort of that way. And then I started working for the World Poker Tour as an instructor after I was an educator. And I traveled the country teaching poker and high stakes decision making under pressure and mindset management. And traveling really opened me up and got me out of my shell and helped me build my confidence. I was able to present in front of classes as a teacher, for a long time, no problem for most of my life because I had that background. But in front of public speaking, larger crowds, it's sort of a different thing. So I got more comfortable with that, and that really gave me a lot of confidence to help me get out of my shell. And I got a lot of positive feedback. So I was lacking a feedback loop early on and so it was hard to learn and grow. And that really helped me build my confidence. And that's actually where I met my wife. She was also working for the World Poker Tour. I was an instructor. Yeah. And she was the event coordinator and director of operations for the educational division of WPT, which was called WPT Boot Camp. And so I was the lead instructor, and we would be traveling around the country doing these 2 and 3 day seminars, teaching people decision making. And we used to give each other advice on like dating and women and men. And we were friends long before we ever got together. We were coworkers and we lived in separate parts of the country. And but we got to know each other really well by seeing each other interact with the opposite sex and with our peers and with strangers. So we sort of got to know each other's style and patterns, and we just increasingly grew to like each other and love each other. And most importantly, I think not be jealous of each other, have an appreciation for each other. Like if one of us gets hit on, we're proud of the other person instead of jealous and afraid that like, oh, maybe this new person is going to take them away from me.
And that's interesting. You mentioned that, like going around the country and teaching these classes, like it's like the more you got out there, you were able to get out of your shell. You were able to be comfortable starting conversations. And it's almost like it put you in the mind frame where you're not so heavily focused on having to get a person. It's just kind of like you're by default learning a skill set. And also people are able to now see you by default of that being out there more and are able to come up to you and you can connect with them a lot easier.
Yes, absolutely. And I had a common language to talk about or with, a common ground, because we were there for a shared topic. So it was about poker. So at some point it was the women starting the conversations. And instead of me looking to pursue any one woman or pursue women in general, I was able to just be myself and meet people organically. And through the volume of meeting people, be able to get more comfortable and date more with more alignment instead of just attraction.
Mm-hmm. That's good. That's good. It's funny because on my show, I talk about this idea that when women like you, they help you. And like they really will, if you're just living your life and doing what you're supposed to do, they will come up to you. They will approach, they will let it be known that they're in your sphere somewhere. And I think as guys, we so often think we have to chase after them. And it's really kind of like you just set your life up in a way where women want to be around you anyway.
Yes, you nailed that. Wow. Absolutely. If you become the man you want to be and have the life you want to lead, then the women will be in your sphere of influence and they'll be attracted to you because of what you're building, because of who you are and what you're going to become. So you'll just have more access to high quality women instead of chasing low hanging fruit, which is what I think a lot of men go around doing.
Yeah, especially early on when they're just desperate for anybody to give them any kind of attention.
Yes, exactly.
Now, how did your personal relationships or even just your development into being more confident, along with your background as an educator and an engineer, how did that shape the concept of your book at all in terms of what you've put together?
Absolutely, it shaped it completely. The main way it affected it was I try to take emotion out of the equation when making decisions. And so that started in poker and it applies to all areas of life, because you want to be as at a baseline as possible when you're making your decisions. You don't want to be too excited. You don't want to be too depressed. You want to be even keel. So
right.
So taking emotion out of the equation is the key. And to do that, you need an objective, data-driven framework or system. And so just by asking yourself to rank your priorities, you're putting pen to paper and you're making these little micro decisions. So in the book, we start with like 10 core life priorities and you just rank them 1 through 10, 1 being the most important, 10 being the least. And so that gives us some data to work from. So if I say one thing's important to me and you say it's not important to you, and we compare those things, that gives us a point of conversation that lets us know objectively, hey, I view career as the second most important thing in my life, and you're viewing it as your 8th. And maybe that's okay, but we should really know. You're viewing it as 8th because you're working on family and you're a stay-at-home mom and you're homeschooling your kids. So you're not viewing that as a career. You're viewing that as your relationships and your family and stuff. And I'm pursuing my career, so it's much higher. I lean towards the data-driven. So when we compare our priorities, you're honest about what yours are, and I'm honest about mine are, and the paper doesn't lie. So it tells us, hey, look, we're aligned here, we're misaligned there. The areas where we're misaligned, we're likely to have arguments or miscommunications, or more often than not, just unspoken. And I lean toward systems and data driven because of my background in teaching and as a Microsoft systems engineer. It's all about setting up frameworks and implementing, when possible, predetermined decisions into place so that it frees you to focus on bigger issues. So an example of that could just be like a habit or a ritual that you put into place with your partner, like a predetermined decision where like we have coffee every morning, and like, you know, that's going to be your time to connect. You don't have to find time to connect every single day. And so these little systems, that these frameworks that you put into place, they create positive momentum and they build and compound results, and you create these upward spirals.
Now, we're going to get into the book, but I just want to say, like, I am personally a big proponent of using data and using facts and figures and even like numbers as a way to best move a relationship forward. But there are a lot of men being taught today that they need to be more emotional. They need to be in touch with their feelings and this and that. And I've just found that hasn't been the best framework. But why do you feel like a data-driven way of doing dating is better for men as opposed to the emotional way of doing things?
So that's a great question. When we're looking at data versus emotion, I think the tendency is to separate them. And I think that there actually can be more integrated than most people think. So when we're looking at the data, what we're doing is with the total difference score and the prioritize us test, just ranking priorities and comparing them. What we're doing is we're creating conversation points, and we're looking for opportunities to ask the question why, and to get curious and to adopt a learning stance about what's important to our partners and why. And to do that requires empathy. And so putting yourself into your partner's shoes, trying to understand what they're doing. Now, I don't know if that's emotional. Sometimes it is, but not necessarily. So maybe emotion is not the right word. Maybe perspective is the right word. Like, men need to have perspective if they don't have emotion. Like, they don't have to get all emotional about it, but they do have to dive in there and see things from their partner's perspective, which is often going to be different. And I think men like to gamify things and take the emotion out of the equation. And that's kind of what this test does too.
Okay. Yeah. Because we definitely like the idea of like there being like a mission, and there being a starting point and an ending point, and there's going to be a reward for that. Like, that's all very much in terms of how guys operate, like very much a thing.
Yeah, totally. And so like when you get your total difference score, it gives you a number 0 to 50, and then that gives you a starting point to work from. So it's like we can try to get our total difference score lower, and the lower we get it, the more aligned we are. So let's see how we can shift our priorities. Let's see how we can reallocate our time and resources to be more on the same page and have a shared vision for the future. And it's like you're getting a credit score for your relationship. It tells you how aligned you are, how strong you are. It's like it gives you a game result.
That's so true. And speaking of the priority aspect of things, so in the book you write that most couples don't argue because they lack love, but they argue because they don't agree on what matters most. And I think we talked about it a little bit, but like, can you expand on why it is that priorities and not love are oftentimes the hidden factors in so many conflicts and relationships?
Sure, absolutely. So the reason love is formed over time, and it's built between two people, and it's emotional, it's intellectual, it's spiritual. And often when it's formed, it's very powerful and long lasting, so much so that people long for their exes sometimes decades later, right? The love is still there and it's not disappearing. So when people care about each other and they're spending time with each other, they're using resources on each other, there's love there. And so the more love there is initially, the more love there is maybe under the surface. That's being hidden because of all these miscommunications because of all these arguments, because of these different opinions, mostly surface level things like opinions that don't affect your day-to-day life, or arguments about petty things in day-to-day life, like tasks, like the dishes, or like whether or not you should spend money on shopping or something, some small things, not big life decisions. The surface level issues, the minutia of day-to-day life is where everybody mostly gets caught up. You know, certainly I have in the past, and almost everybody I've worked with gets caught up there. And what's happening is they're looking at things at the wrong level. So they're arguing about the dishes, but it's not about the dishes. It's about the priorities. It's about how we're using our time. It's about health, setting an environment that's clean and able to work from, to set us up for success for tomorrow, because the dishes are done. So we don't have to start our day with a task. We can start our day with a beverage and music and create these positive sequences in the morning. And so lack of knowledge on your partner's priorities doesn't allow you to love the person fully. And shared context is what breeds connection. So it's like you're missing out on all these opportunities to love more fully because you don't know these areas and you're focused on these petty things that make up day-to-day life. But it's not what either one of you really want to focus on. Like, nobody really wants to talk about the tasks. Everybody really wants to solve the bigger issues and just get along better and find not balance, but equilibrium. So I think there's this mistake in thought around equality. Like, relationships aren't supposed to be equal. It's not like everything I have, my wife has, everything she has, I have. And whenever one of us does one thing, the other person does another to match it. And it's tit for tat. And we keep track. It's not like that at all. We don't want equality. We don't want balance. Balance is a finite state. It's not sustainable. We want equilibrium. We want an ecosystem that's healthy, that's self-sustaining, that's a cycle that we can build from, and it can be mutually beneficial and long-term sustainable. That's my goal for my relationship with my wife and for everyone I work with, is for it to be mutually beneficial and long-term sustainable. And so priorities and defining them is the foundation to make this happen.
I think it's also interesting too, because speaking of priorities, about how like that could even go to like the roles we think we're supposed to play or do in relationships. I just remember my mom telling me that she used to work at a bank, and so she was really, really good with money. But my dad thought that he had to be the one that was good with money and paid all the bills and stuff, but he just absolutely hated it. And so he was putting priorities on something that she just came to one day like, look, I like paying bills and doing money stuff, and you hate it. Like, let me take that over, because it's causing you to be like, have an attitude and have a riff, and we don't need that. So let me take that task on. Like, let that be my priority, even though you think you have to do it, but you don't have to do that.
That's such a great example. Perfect example of identifying an equilibrium state. Like, so much credit to your mother for realizing it and your father for allowing it, you know, not letting ego get in the way. And like, that's exactly the kind of thing you want to identify in your relationship. Like, what is it that you don't mind doing, or that you enjoy doing, or get gratification from doing, that I do mind doing? Like, where are those things that, like, how can we split things up, not based on chores and who does it, but based on interests and who gets gratification from what tasks? And if neither one of us like doing something, how can we offload that? How can we outsource it as a long-term goal? Maybe neither one of us likes cleaning the bathroom, so maybe we bring someone in to clean once a week. And maybe for like $100, we can solve this problem that's been an argument like continuously for like years, because neither one of us wants to do it. Or maybe one of us actually gets gratification from cleaning it. They love the feeling of a clean bathroom and they don't mind doing it. And when it's your turn to do it, you do mind, so it never gets done. So they get mad at you, so they nag or whatever, and you go back and forth. Meanwhile, they're happy to just take it on, and you don't realize that because you're hung up on equality and like, I should clean it half the time, they should clean it half the time. So
I like the idea you said, like the idea of a whole balance thing. It's like, that's not realistic just in a gym relationship, but also just like within how we take in things and stuff. I've told them on this channel, I've said for men, like, a lot of times we think, for example, like, oh, it's 50-50. So, if she's saying loving things to me 50% of the time, I got to say it also. But I found that women typically want more action from us than words. And so it can feel like overkill when we're saying a whole lot. And they're just like, this is because they are good at passive language. They're already going to feel more times what we're saying. So us saying it all the same time as they are, that's also off balance. So it's a lot of the things like that where it's like, I see how things get off balance and how things can start to like cause fights and stuff like that when people aren't aware of what things actually keep balance versus not,
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a good example with, words of affirmation or compliments. You have to know or flirting. You have to know what the right amount is for your partner. So, and you have to gamify that, like test it, like see what the response is. You're going to get positive feedback for these kinds of things most of the time when you first initiate, but then maybe you go too far. The same thing can be with, sharing about your interests or your work. Like you want to figure out what the right amount of sharing is so that you're not wasting someone's time by oversharing, but you want them involved in your life and to know what's going on. And you got to kind of find that equilibrium of content sharing too.
Yeah, so true. So true. Now, in the book, you talk about this thing called priority drift. So what is that? And how is it that so many couples experience that?
Great question. So priority drift happens when people don't check in, when they're either not aware of priorities or they were aware, but they haven't recently checked in. So priorities ask the question, what's most important now? As opposed to like values, which are beliefs that are more stable. They're sort of pillars of your life. Values shift gradually and don't change mostly once people are adults, unless something really dramatic happens. So values might be like whether or not you want kids, how important family is to you, things like that. Honesty is a value, transparency. But priorities ask the question, what's important now? So what's important in the beginning of your relationship is not what's important a week in or a month later or a year later. So a lot of times people talk about things in the beginning, like how important their career is or how important personal growth is or their health and things like that. They might talk about it and then they kind of lock those answers in. Like, okay, so this person just thinks their career is the most important and they're losing weight, so health is the next most important. And personal growth is third, and that's just the way it's going to stay. And so they don't check back in, and things shift, and things change, and life happens gradually or traumatically. And when something big happens, you definitely want to check in and do something like this. But if you check in regularly, then you'll notice you'll stop from growing apart when you don't need to. You'll be on the same page and you'll have a shared context for life. Like if I know what your priorities are, then everything you do for the most part makes sense to me. You don't have to explain all your actions to me. I know you're late because you're going for a promotion, not because you don't want to have dinner with me, because you don't value quality time. It's not neglect. I know that when you come home, even if you get home early because you're going for a promotion, you're still going to be working at home on that career. And so that's okay, but I need to know that. And so that I can use that time for my own thing. Maybe I work on my personal growth during that time, or maybe I communicate with my friends during that time. There's this concept that they call a parallel play, which is when two people do the same activity do different activities in the same space. So like you might read a book while I'm writing, or we might read simultaneously different things, or even listen to music on headphones in the same room. So we're being in each other's presence and we have that shared connection, but we're doing separate things. And so I think that's really valuable to identify when that's important in a relationship. So if someone's prioritizing their career and they're come home and they're going to work, that might be perfectly fine, but your partner has to know. And so often it's like, you never really told me that career is so important right now for these next 3 months because you're up for a promotion. Yeah, I knew work was important. And yeah, I knew you might get a promotion, but I didn't get it like that. because you never told me it was their number one priority right now. And that in 3 months, it's going to go back to your fourth priority, and our relationship is going to go back up there, and our health is going to go back up there because you haven't been working out, because you've been working on the promotion, because you've been eating fast food and delivery, because you've been working on the promotion, and like that can't keep going, right? So when is it going to change? Let's look at these numbers. Let's use some data and say, okay, after the promotion, we're going to make these shifts together. And instead of it just drifting, and instead of us wondering, and like, it's like having two GPS systems. You have Apple and I have Google, and we're trying to go to the same place, but it's all different routes, and we're trying to go together, but it doesn't work out. And sometimes we're not even going to the same place, so it really doesn't work out.
Yeah, that's so true. And I think I think that of the two genders, I think women are actually a bit better at when priorities are changing, because guys are kind of like, once we get a system set in place, like I've been playing Nintendo since I was like 5. I have not played any other. Well, I play other stuff, but I've only owned Nintendo because like Nintendo works for me. I don't care about PS5. I don't care about Xbox stuff, and I'm just sticking to Nintendo. And I think that we sometimes get stuck in a thing where we meet a girl a certain way and it's like, oh, she likes this, this, and this, so it's going to just stay that way. And like women are ever constantly changing. So we get rattled when it's like, oh, they want to own a new job, or oh, suddenly they can't watch the kids as much because, to your point, they're like getting a new position in their job, or they just want to do something different. And we're like, that's not the same person. And I think they're typically better, I've seen, at adjusting to things more so than we are.
Yeah, they have that natural adaptability. Maybe it's because of the potential for motherhood and great change. Like that's like the most crazy change to your body and your life ever. It's instantly changes your priorities. Whatever was number one is no longer number one, and now your child is, or children are. And that's a change that can be anticipated potentially. But the drastic changes that also go on, they're underneath the surface. They're not visible unless you talk about them. And that adaptability that women have, that maybe men struggle with a little more, because men are more consistent. They have to be, historically, maybe they're the breadwinners, and maybe the women have to be more adaptable. So maybe that goes into it too.
Possibly. Yeah. Because I think about things like, they grow stuff out, and then they have children. So they have to, their body's going to change. How their daily routine is going to change when kids get here. Like, it seems like they're primed for that. Whereas because we're supposed to be the rock, by default of being a rock, you don't want to move a whole lot.
Rocks don't bend that easily.
Yeah, they really, really don't. But I think that's a lesson for guys in terms of like, I know for me, like I've had to become more self-aware that, okay, if I'm dating somebody and things are starting to shift, it's like, okay, you already know you're not going to want to change stuff, but for the purposes of this season, this is going to be good. So you have to be mindful of that. So with that said, like, what is the importance of self-awareness with regards to being aligned with the person you're with in a relationship?
Self-awareness is so important, because if you don't know yourself, you can't really know anyone else. So the idea that you think you know your partner's priorities when you've never really defined your own is kind of crazy. And that's what almost everybody walks around thinking. They're like, oh, I know what's important to them. Do you? Do you even know what's important to you? When I give you these 10 things to rank, how long is it going to take you? Is it going to take you 2 minutes, or is it going to take you 20, or are you going to give it to me tomorrow? Like, how much have you thought about these priorities? And then when I ask you, how much time do you spend on each priority? Is it going to be like all your time and resources are allocated to the top 3? Or are you going to be spending 20 hours a week on entertainment that you ranked as number 9? So like, how aligned with your priorities are you? Never mind that you think you know your partner when you barely know yourself. And that self-realization is so critical to being the man you want to be, to being the person you want to be, so that you can be in a relationship and attract the type of partner that you want. Like we talked about earlier, like getting to that level and that place where your sphere of influence is the kind of mate that you want, involves this self-reflection and doing some of this kind of work. And it's really not even work. It's pretty fun and very gamifiable and really interesting. What's more interesting than learning about yourself? Ideally
knowing yourself too, like, because I just know as myself, like, if I'm not aware of the things I like and where my life's going and my trajectory, then how am I supposed to know what circles to even put myself into to meet the kind of women that potentially I want? Like that's such an important thing for a guy to know. And also women like guys that know themselves, because if he's lost, how is she supposed to follow him?
Right. You can't be a leader if you're lost.
So true. So you have a thing in a book called the TDS framework, the total difference score. So talk a bit about what that is and how it can be used by couples in practical ways.
Sure. So the total difference score is just the result of taking the Prioritize Us test. And the Prioritize Us test is really easy. It's just 10 priorities in a list. And I can run them off real quick so people could take it at home. It's career, communication, entertainment, finances, growth, health, relationships, safety, sex, and spirituality. So you just write those 10 things down and then you rank them 1 through 10, 1 being the most important, 10 being the least. So if career is the most important thing to you right now, you put that as a 1. If your finances are all in great shape, maybe that's a 10 right now. So it's a low priority for you. Okay, so then we're going to do this, and then our partner is going to do the same thing separately. And then we're going to compare the 2 lists, and we're going to get the difference between the scores of each priority. So I put career as 1, you put it as 4, the difference is 3. And we're going to get a total difference score across all 10 priorities and add them up. So we're just getting the difference between the numbers, and then we're getting a total. So we add them all up and we get a number between 0 and 50. If it's 0, that means we were completely aligned. Every priority 1 through 10 was the same. That never happens. It's like 1 in a trillion. 50 means we're complete opposites and like we have different worldviews, and we're going to have a lot to talk about. Somewhere in between, you start to get into a complementary range where like the gaps that I have are filled by you, the gaps that you have are filled by me. So a high score isn't a death sentence for a relationship. It means that there's more to work on, more to communicate about early on. A low score does mean you're going to make decisions easier together. You're going to communicate more effortlessly. There's likely to be less conflict because you have similar world views. You're going to have a similar vision for the future more often than not. And your score can certainly improve over time. That's what I usually see. Once people make their priorities visible, their partners tend to naturally want to account for the other's priorities. So if I realize that personal growth is important to you and it's a number 3, but I didn't even think about it, it was a number 9 for me. Now I could say like, oh, why is growth important to you? You explain it. And I want to start making space for that for you. Maybe I start doing some personal growth oriented things too. Or maybe when I make space for you to grow, I work on my communication because that's my 3rd highest priority, communicating with my loved ones. And so we can do like parallel play or separately, completely. But we know what each other is doing. We have that shared context because we know each other's priorities.
Okay. I was wondering, like, if a couple, like, they really, really love each other, but they have, like, say one's got a 2 on something and one's got an 8 or a 9 on something, how they bridge that gap. But ideally, if they love each other, then it's like, okay, on this one, either I can pull you up or I can come down a bit so we can kind of align and figure out what the balance is to that. Exactly.
And excuse me, oftentimes when people are not aligned, it's because of it's invisible. They never really talked about the topic. I see this a lot with sex and spirituality.
Oh gosh, yeah.
So important, so little discussed. People are afraid to talk about it with their friends. They're afraid to talk about it with their family. They're afraid to talk about it with their primary partner. And it's a shame because it's such an easy opportunity to build intimacy and bond. So like one couple I was working with recently, one of them put sex as number 3 and one of them put it as number 10.
Ooh.
And
how do you balance that out? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's a rough one. But they both put spirituality as number 1. So rather than focusing on their differences, I focused on their strength. And I say, how much time are you spending on your spirituality each week? Low for both of them. How much time together jointly on your spirituality? Non-existent. So, okay, so let's build in some routines and rituals here. let's do a 5 or 10 minute spirituality in the morning. Maybe it's a meditation together. Maybe it's a prayer out loud. Maybe it's quiet. Maybe it's holding hands in silence, whatever the spirituality means to you. Let's do that every morning. And then once a week, let's do something for an hour or two. Maybe that's going to a formal ceremony, or maybe that's just discussing our spirituality together with no phones and no devices and true quality time. And so what happened is they built on their strength. And the reason sex was low for one of the partners was because they weren't connecting at all. So she felt completely disconnected from him. And as a result, the intimacy, the physical intimacy was diminished because the emotional intimacy wasn't present, right? And the connection was diminished. And how they met and got together in the first place was spirituality. So the things they were doing in the beginning of their relationship, life happened, and they stopped doing all their routines. They stopped connecting in the ways they did. And so it's not that their love was lower. There was no love lost. It didn't go away. The love was still present, but they were misaligned, grossly misaligned. And so one partner thinks, oh, maybe she's not attracted to me anymore, or starts making up all these false narratives around why sex isn't happening. Maybe I need to get to the gym more. Maybe I need to flirt more. Maybe I need to compliment more. And you're trying all these solutions, and you're like shooting at a target in the dark. It's like you're not going to hit it. You're not going to get a bullseye. You're not even going to hit the target. And it could be so easy. Like, just have a conversation about it. Like, why is sex a low priority to you right now? Maybe it's okay. Maybe she's grieving because she lost a loved one, and like, it's just kind of not on the table for a little while. Maybe we can do something else that's intimate, or maybe it's just she doesn't even see your advances. Maybe she's whiffing them. She doesn't see she's being pursued all the time. Or maybe she wants to initiate but doesn't know how, and you've never discussed that. She thinks that one time she initiated and it didn't work out because you were distracted by a video game, and now she's afraid to try ever again because you didn't notice the sexy outfit that she put on for sexy time because you were distracted. And sometimes that happens. One little incident can have like this traumatic effect, and then it goes unspoken because you never discussed sex. And like, you could have just had a conversation about where it is, and like by just throwing it on a list and ranking a number, it's like all of a sudden you have this discussion point. We've both put a number on it without having to have a hard conversation. All we did was write 1 through 10 down next to a word. And so after their connection through spirituality increased, their sex increased. And so all of a sudden sex became a much higher priority. It became like a 6 or a 5 and a 3 instead of a 3 and a 10.
A 10. Yeah. No, that's so good to hear, because it's like you really, it speaks to the idea of like, as you start to figure out the priorities that are similar, and then also knowing what your partner maybe is saying is not a priority, and trying to figure out what the reason behind that is, and then addressing that as a way to end up getting your partner to make the thing that you want to be the priority also be a priority. Like, that's fascinating.
Yeah, it really is. And it's amazing how well it works and how transparent it all is. It's like, it's so beautiful because it's as honest as it gets. There's no manipulation going on. You're saying, this is important to me and here's why, and what's important to you and here's why. So often I see couples, one person trying to like get their way. They're trying to like get this outcome to happen by manipulating in some way their partner. And maybe it's with good intent, but it's still manipulative. Like, it could even be for their own benefit. It could be mutually beneficial. It might even be like a great surprise or something, but they're still doing it in this like manipulative way. What they're doing is they're playing a finite game. They're playing to win something. They're playing to achieve a particular outcome rather than playing an infinite game, which is where the goal is to keep playing with the highest quality as possible. So like, because you're a gamer, that sometimes you're not just trying to win and end, you're trying to build something, and it's going to be long lasting. And for maybe forever, you might play this game, you might build this world or this team of people, and it's an alliance, and it doesn't have a finite end. And so people do that in games, but they don't really think about it in real life. Like that's what your romantic relationships are. They're like, it's an infinite game if you're doing it right, I think, because otherwise you're playing to like get that finite goal. Like you're playing just to get the phone number or just to sleep with them or just to get engaged, whatever level, just to get married, just to have a kid. It's like you're really focused on finite goals that are not infinite. So they're going to end. You're playing you're playing a finite game rather than playing an infinite game. And if you approach all your decisions like they're going to be for the long run, then you'll just be setting yourself up for success.
It's funny you talk about that because I think about back in the day, like early 2000s when like the pickup artist community was really, really big. And I always told people, I actually think that like having pickup skills is actually very, very important. But I just noticed that a lot of those guys that were great at pickup weren't good at long-term relationships. So they picked up a skill that was going to get them a result, which is a hookup or a kiss or whatever. But then once that was done, it was like, great, I got it. And then you got to like have more skills to keep it going, and they just didn't have it. So it's like, oh, you got to learn more beyond just the pickup stuff. Like that's just one example of that.
You nailed it. I think the pickup stuff has so much value to all social relationships, like learning to overcome your social anxiety, being able to approach women or people you're intimidated by, could be someone powerful at work, learning the skill sets of opening people and gamifying it and having gambits that you run because you have to get comfortable. There's so much value in that in all areas of life. It's a highly transferable skill, but you're so dead on right that just once you learn to pick up a woman doesn't mean you know how to be in a relationship with her. And often the motives that you had for picking her up are opposite or contradictory to being in a relationship, because you're trying to win and she's trying to sustain.
Yeah. Yeah. So true. So true. Now in the book, you also mentioned about technology as being like a really big distraction. I know I get annoyed when I see like couples on dates and like one of them's on the phone, clearly like just sucked into the phone and not paying attention to the other person. So, and this is also true in long-term relationships where it's like, you know, you're in bed together, then one's on the phone and it's like, it can start to cause a rift over time that maybe the people weren't aware was going to happen. So like, how can couples navigate the digital space, especially when one is maybe more plugged in than the other one?
That's such a great question. It's such a modern problem that never existed in all of human history before. Like maybe you had to pull someone away from their book at some point, but
or their paper,
like this guy won't stop reading. How do I get him to stop reading? But aside from that, I don't really think it's such a modern problem. And so one of the things I would encourage is to share your content and have that be a connection point. So you don't have to necessarily view the same content, but like talk about what you're consuming and find out why. So maybe there's something in your domain that I would enjoy. Maybe there's something in my domain that we would enjoy. Maybe there's some overlap that we can consume content either together or separately and share that. Maybe we can follow the same person or the same company, or we can watch the same YouTube content. There's so much high quality content out there now, but basically you have to carve out time where there are no devices. It can be for 5 minutes a day or 10 minutes a day, but you have to have time where it's uninterruptible. And you need to do this for yourself as a human. Like if you don't have some period of time every day where you can't be pinged and distracted away from your focus, that's not okay. Like I'm here to say it's unacceptable. Like you need to, as a human, have time to yourself that can't be invaded by an alert or an incoming message or whatever. Maybe it's an hour a day. Maybe it's 10 hours a day, but you need that time for yourself, and you need that time in any relationship if you want it to be high quality. Because if you're able to be interrupted, then you're not really connecting. That's like a false connection. It's a surface level one. If you want to have a high quality, intimate connection or conversation, then it has to be with no interruptions. And that means no devices for a while. I'd start at like 5-10 minutes a day. Just have a hot beverage together and don't talk about other people and don't talk about, and don't have your devices. Make it just to be about you and us. And that's it. and just do it for 10 minutes a day. This little habit will compound and will pay dividends. And then that's like a small one. And then a medium one once a week for, say, an hour or two. We have a meal, no devices, can be at home, can be out. We could take a walk together. We could take a hike. It doesn't matter what you do. What matters is that you carve out time where the technology is at a pause.
Mm. And it's such a hard thing to do these days because people are so much like, it's like they're not good at being present because it's just like, while they're here, it's like, what's going on my phone or what's going on in the internet world or at large? I just got to know. And it really can distract from like that intimate connection you're trying to keep and prolong with that other person.
Right. And what they're really doing is they have multiple worlds going on and they're like multi-tabling the worlds. They're playing like multiple games at once. Like in poker, we can play like more than one game. So like you might play like 8 tables at once. So you're like multi-tabling. So your focus is split. And that's what everybody's doing. Everybody's like multi-tabling life right now.
Yeah.
They're like in different worlds, in different realms with different connections and different communications. And they're trying to like maintain them all in real time. And what I think people don't realize is that most connections, they don't have to be in real time. It's all turn-based. So like, it's cool if you get back to them in 2 hours, it's fine. Like there's not going to be any downside usually. Like maybe the person's like, what the hell? Why didn't you respond in so long? Like they're a little piffed maybe. And it's a ridiculous thing to be piffed at because like, dude, I can't be 24/7 for you.
Yeah. I have found it is a very good barometer to tell if the person you're dating is like overly needy. Is like, if they text you and you text back like an hour later, like, why aren't you texting me? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, this is going to be a lot already. Like I can't be on my phone all day.
Right. And for every relationship, right? Sometimes friends are like that. They expect the immediate response. Sometimes work is like that. And maybe that's acceptable or maybe it's not, but it should be defined on your terms. And the same thing with your relationship, like talk about your communication styles and preferences. Like, do you need a text every morning? Do we have to say hello on the phone? Do we wake up and we connect in some way? Do we not talk all day and then we talk later? Do we check in regularly? What kind of response time can I expect when you're working? When are you dark? It's okay to go dark, but for when and how long, I need to know in advance. Like, I don't want to text you and then 8 hours later, you're like, well, I was recording a podcast and then I was editing it and then I was doing this. Like, you could have told me. Like, I could have been doing something else. I was hoping we were going to do something. And so like they have a misaligned expectation and you have an unshared priority. So you're both doing something and you're whiffing each other and neither one of you is getting what you want and you're both unhappy about it. And it's so like, true. It can be solved. It can be solved so easily with just a little communication.
Yeah, very, very true. Now, the other thing that couples can struggle with over time is starting to feel more like roommates. Like in the beginning, it's all lovey-dovey and you're trying to put in your best foot forward. And then over time, it's like, you start farting in front of each other or you just kind of like dress like whatever. And then just becomes where it's like you feel like they're more like a roommate than like a romantic mate. So how does that happen? And then how does your approach help couples to make sure that that's not going to be a thing?
This is a fantastic question. I've seen this quite a bit. So it's really prevalent. It's out there. So the roommate scenario, when the relationship fades, usually it's the sex that stops or slows way down. The physical connection is what tends to fade. Usually that's because people once they live together, they're no longer segmenting their time in deliberate ways. So when you live apart, you plan things and you do things much more deliberately. You say, okay, we're going to spend time together now. We're going to do these 3 dates a week. We're going to have quality time in this way. We're going to, at the end of a date, we're probably going to do some kind of physical activity like sex or physical intimacy of some sort. It can be anticipated and it's more like, not that it's scheduled or planned, but it's more routine. Like you're dating and you're seeing each other X number of days a week. And on the weekends you sleep over. And when you sleep over, you got to get it in because you're not going to see each other for a week. But when you're living together, all of a sudden, all of your frameworks, you just broke them all unless you keep them going. So unless you say we're still going to go out 3 nights a week and we're still going to have date night on Saturday night where we just have a sleepover and it's no friends and it's this and that, just like we used to when we were dating. What happens is people stop doing the things that they were doing when they were dating once they think they get the person. They live with them, or they get engaged, or they get married, or whatever, and all of a sudden all their frameworks and systems break and they start playing a different game. They're like, oh, okay, I got it now. So now I can just, I don't know what they think. They just think they can just maintain. And the problem with maintenance is that it's a myth. If you maintain, you deteriorate. Like, you have to be growing. It's maintenance is like balance. It's very hard to do. It's not a sustainable state. If you're not growing, you're atrophying. Like, if you don't hit the gym and you don't challenge yourself, you're going to lose your ability to lift the same weight. If you don't walk regularly, you're going to lose your ability to walk effortlessly. And you see this happen with elderly people often. Sometimes they sort of prematurely age themselves by not doing the things they were doing before. And so this happens in relationships. You prematurely age the relationship by not doing the things you're doing. So I suggest attempts to reconnect. And if you're really in a roommate situation and it's severe, I would suggest like doing something drastic, like a couples retreat, like something where you're getting, where it's going to be intense, like 2 days where you're going to be focused on just you and the relationship and learning about yourselves and reconnecting. So if you really want to save the relationship, then something drastic like that, 2 days can make a huge difference. But just identifying, you have to identify what's going on. Why are you just roommates? It's probably because you're very focused on tasks and not focused at all on like shared vision for day-to-day life and time allocation. So like when people are home alone, they have their routines. Maybe they watch this much content on the couch. Maybe they game for this long. They have their nighttime rituals. And when you move in with somebody, most of the time people try to do something similar to what they've always done. But that's not really okay. What you really need to do is recreate all your rituals and redesign your life for a shared vision of what day-to-day life looks like. So what do we want our mornings to look like? Do we wake up at separate times? Do we wake up together? You go to work at 6, I go to work at 9. Does that mean we both wake up at 5 and we have time together? And then I do my gaming in that interim time so that we can get the joint morning together? Or do I sleep in late and we don't connect in the morning, but then we connect at night? So maybe we need a nighttime series of steps, a ritual, or a sequence. You need a sequence of like, how do we connect at night? What's our bedtime ritual? Do we go to bed at different times? Okay, so now we're waking up at different times, we're going to bed at different times, and we're not together all day. Plus, we don't go out on dates 3 nights a week anymore, and we don't have our sleepovers on Saturdays. Like, why is our relationship no good? You broke it. You changed everything. And you said we're going to get closer because we live together. It doesn't work that way. You don't get closer because you live together. You get closer because you build your connection, because you foster intimacy, because you build communication. And sex is a form of communication. So if you're not communicating physically in some way, like how often are you touching each other? You know, in pickup, they say, like, how often are you Kino escalating?
Kinoing. Yes, Kinoing.
Right?
Yeah.
So, like, how often are you doing that? You did it in the beginning. How often are you doing it now? How often are you flirting? You used to flirt all the time in the beginning, giving compliments, giving gifts, and you stopped doing it all. So what did I do to break the relationship? What happened together? And not what did she do? Not what did my partner do? What's my role? What's changed? It's not that someone's to blame. It's that something changed. A lot of things changed. Moving in together is a significant life event, and it can be somewhat traumatic. Moving is a traumatic experience. They say that moving is one of the most difficult things you can do. And I've moved many times, and I agree. Like, I've been in this house a year and I'm still not settled.
That's so true. Like, just all those life changes and stuff. And then it happens so gradually. Like, you'll just be like 4 years in, you're just like, it starts something as like, oh, like you guys used to walk by each other in the kitchen and touch each other and kiss each other. Then it just kind of like slowly starts to fade. And then this thing changes. And then next thing you know, you're working so much you can't do date nights. Then you look up 4 years later and you're like, oh my God, like we were doing so much more than and like it's such like a sneak of time that it's very hard to recognize if you're not able to catch it. And that goes to being aware about things again. Like, hey, we haven't been on a date in like 2 weeks. We should like do something this week, right? Like, what's going on?
You just nailed it so perfectly. That was amazing. That's priority drift. You just summed it up perfectly. Like that's what happens 4 years later. Everything is different, and we don't know why because we weren't having these check-ins.
And for couples that have already, like, let's say they're past the roommate phase, now they're phase where like they're possibly about talking about separation or possibly talking about divorce. Like, how can couples benefit from the guidance that you talk about in the Prioritize This book?
That's a great question. If couples are in crisis, then figuring out whether it's a deal breaker or not is your objective. So do we have green flags or red flags? Let's look at our vision for the future. What do we both want? Are we aligned on our values? So like things like family, like career, are we aligned on those? But more importantly, where are our strengths? Do we have any? Where are our priorities the same? And can we build on those? Is that enough? Or is the difference in priority never going to change? Like, for example, if I put spirituality as 1 and you put spirituality as 10, it's probably not going to change that much. Like maybe it'll come up to a 7, but I'm not going to become a believer now. All of a sudden, unless some kind of epiphany hits, if you're a believer and I'm not, well, that might be a fundamental difference that we cannot reconcile. And that might be what's at play. And the priority test can show that. If I'm a 1 for sex and you're a 10, and it's because you dislike sex and I'm a sexual person and that's my communication language and like I'm all about it, that I can't even go a day without doing something sexual or I start to flip out, and for you're abstinent, like this is probably not going to work. So like that's a deal breaker. But if it's just that one of us, if it's that we have core beliefs that are the same, core priorities that are the same, so we're aligned, we both prioritize communication, we both prioritize personal growth, we both prioritize health. So like we have our top 3 and they're all the same, well, we can really build from that. So what's going on? Like what's going on? The love is probably there and the foundation is there. So there's something else at play. Maybe it's social dynamics outside of your relationship. Maybe it has to do with families at play. Maybe it has to do with friends at play. Maybe it has to do with your careers being too separate, too many hours away from each other, and you're not reconciling that in some way because you have different worlds and you're not integrating. So I see that a lot. Like people have their work world and their friends world and their family world and then their relationship. And you have to ask yourself, what kind of vision do we have for our shared future? Are we keeping separate worlds or are we integrating? Like, do we have the kind of life where we go out Friday night with our friends separately, or do we go out together? Do we alternate friendship groups and go out once a week with each group? And like the friends don't get me alone anymore. And maybe that's our vision for the future. Or maybe that's the opposite, but we need to know. And those are things that we both have a vision for. What we just haven't talked about it. You kind of know what you want your life to look like, but maybe you haven't written it down. Maybe you haven't made it expressly visible. And that's why visualization is so important to manifestation and to alchemizing the life that you want and to be the person that you want, because you have to identify what you want your life to look like. You have to do that alone, and then you have to do that with your partner. And if you don't do that, then you're both shooting at targets that are moving and it's in the dark. Like you're just drawing dead because we're not working toward the same vision. It doesn't have to be the same goals, but our life we have to know what our life looks like. Like, wouldn't it be wonderful if one day we go for walks every morning? Or does that sound terrible to you? Wouldn't it be wonderful if one day we live on a house on the water? Or does that sound terrible to you? Maybe you want to live in the desert. Maybe I can get on board with that. I just want an extreme environment. But I want to have this vision for our long-term future and our short-term future. Like, wouldn't it be wonderful if every Friday we could go out to a fancy restaurant that we've never tried before? Maybe that sounds great. Maybe that sounds terrible. Wouldn't it be great if every Friday we could eat McDonald's on my cheat day and come home and watch Netflix? I don't know. Maybe we're the same. Maybe we're different. Maybe we can do both. But it's nice if we know.
And none of these things are inherently like bad or good. It's just a matter of your preference and your priority, and then what your partner is or is not willing to take on based on what they know about what is that you're into.
Right, exactly. And maybe it's fun to change and explore new things. Maybe when I find out that your partner is a foodie, maybe it's like, I've never been a foodie. Like, I've eaten fast food most of my life. I haven't, I cook at home. I've never done fine dining. Maybe that's like an opportunity to experience new things, and doing new things together is one of the best ways to connect. So if you're struggling in your relationship and you're in crisis mode, ask yourself, when is the last time we did something together that's new? Just the two of us.
And that's true too, because I would say I've definitely seen a lot of complaints from women where they've said that their guy, like, just like I've gone on trips before, for example, right? Like last year I did a trip to Bali where I was the sole guy on the trip, and there were 11 women, and some of them were married, and they were just like, oh, my husband didn't know if he wanted to go, or like he decided maybe last minute he wanted to go, but it was too late at that point. But they were just kind of like, I'd rather just stay home. And I'm like, I don't understand that lifestyle. But apparently dudes are out here like not wanting to try new stuff. And I'm like, why would you not want to do new stuff? Like, especially if it's going to bring some vigor to your relationship. Like, if keeping her happy just means, hey, let's eat at this restaurant instead of this one, why would you not do that? I don't understand.
Yeah, it's the perspectives are so different between like the women on your trip and the men at home. And maybe it comes back to what we talked about earlier, that adaptability versus that consistency. Like, the dude just wants to be at home doing his thing because that keeps him in work mode. He's grinding and he doesn't know how to turn that off and go away for a while. And maybe he's scared that he's going to lose his grind, when he comes back. And maybe that's in the back of his mind. And the woman's more adaptable and able to do it more. I mean, I'm with you. I'd go to Bali. Right? Don't get me wrong. I'll go to the new restaurant. I think that trying new things is one of the best parts of life. And if you can try something new that you already know your partner enjoys, or that they already have a vision for enjoying, like they've dreamt of going to this French restaurant, like, that's great. We can fulfill a mini dream. That's amazing. Like, I can't believe we get to do that for a couple $100. Like, that's amazing. Maybe we could do it once a month or once a year or once a week, depending on what's going on. But if you can, and maybe for you, the mini dream is something different. Maybe that's going to like a gaming tournament sometime. And like, maybe you can do a shared experience that way. Like, she can be your fan, or you can be fans together, or you can be at a conference or an expo or a convention or an aquarium or a zoo. Just go to the park, just do something new. It doesn't have to cost anything. It can be free. It doesn't have to be for more than like an hour, but like, put yourself out of your existing circumstances. If your relationship's not working, a lot of it has to do with your environment and your setting. So change it. Go to a different environment, change your setting, carve out some time without devices, and have some meaningful conversations, and see if your relationship is actually working or not. Like, maybe you just got away from each other and you've just lost that quality time. And doing a new thing in a new environment will be like a breath of fresh air. It'll be like a weight lifted. Like, you'll remember you again, and you'll remember them again.
Well, this has been a fantastic conversation, and I'm very excited to be able to talk about the book. Where can people find out more about you, your work, the TDS framework? Like, let us know where we can find your stuff.
Cool. So if anyone wants to learn more about me, they can go on Instagram and follow me at Personal Dev Coach. So that's Personal Development Coach, DEV, Personal Dev Coach on Instagram. If they go to nickbrancato.com, Nick, N-I-C-K, Brancato, BRANCATO.com, they can get Prioritize Us, the book, as an ebook, absolutely free. I just want to help as many people as I can improve their relationships, not just their romantic ones, but all the relationships in their life. And if you go on Amazon, you can get Prioritize Us as a paperback or a hardcover. And if anyone has any questions or comments, I'd love to hear from you. Feel free to DM me. I'm so excited that we had this conversation. Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, me too. This has been absolutely great, and much success to you and your endeavors, because I think you have a lot of stuff to offer, and I think it's just great information.
Thank you so much. And I just want to give props to you for doing this podcast. High quality content like this is so important. There's so much fluff and garbage out there, and like what you're doing is excellent. You're a terrific host. You bring the energy, and you bring the questions and the positivity, and you make it easy.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that feedback. For the rest of you guys out there, be sure to go to harrywilmington.com and check out my ebooks, audiobooks, and other various programs, including my Get Girls Academy, which is all of my programs in one place for you guys to get your education. Also, check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/harrywilmington. If you want one-on-one coaching, go to the website, like the videos, all that great stuff, and I will catch you guys on the next episode. I'm out. Peace. Hey there, thanks for tuning in to Harry Dating Convos. Don't forget to visit harrywilmington.com to download my free ebook, Texting Women Like a Boss. And while you're there, if you're ready to take things to the next level with your dating life, check out the Get Girls Academy membership program for exclusive strategies and live coaching. Go to harrywilmington.com to learn more and join today. Lastly, if you've got a question you'd like answered on one of these shows, leave a comment below or write me at harrywilmington@gmail.com. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.